A financial auditor is suing his employers after injuring himself so badly on a work night out that part of his skull had to be removed. Michael Brockie has opened a £200,000 lawsuit after he was found unconscious following the excessive pub golf drinking game. Court papers reportedly say those who attended were told to down pints in as few mouthfuls as possible, with the lowest scores being the winners, and it encouraged excessive consumption. Many associate alcohol with socialising, especially after work, but who is then responsible for you, and should it be forced on you? So are we drinking too much as a nation? And does it become more of a problem when mixed with work? Joining me to discuss this are Sandra Parker, founder of sobriety support group Just The Tonic, and Alan Miller, co-founder of the Nighttime Association. So, Sandra, I'm going to come to you first. Thanks both for joining me, by the way. Sandra, what do you make of this? Do you think that we are now moving into a culture where we're just drinking too much? And should we be taking responsibility for our own alcohol consumption?
So first of all, I would say that this is obviously a very distressing and extreme example. In terms of us taking responsibility, I think the interesting thing in this case, it was someone quite young. You know, we have a duty of care. Employers have a duty of care to all their staff. And I would say when someone's quite young and they're trying to fit into the workplace, it's really, really important that management do not encourage or persuade people to drink excessive amounts.
But could the people on these late night, whatever it was, the golf drinking game, could not the employer, I mean, these are adults, aren't they, ultimately? Could they not have said, no, I'm not going to participate in this?
I mean, of course, they're adults. I guess, from my experience as a coach, I work with people from a variety of backgrounds, and every single working organisation, people say to me, the common thread is there's a big drinking culture where I work. And yes, we can absolutely say no, but in a lot of cases, it's quite difficult to do that. If you're starting out your working career and you're trying to fit in with the culture, the last thing that you want to do is be the one person in the team that refuses to have a drink or refuses to join in. So people are often put under pressure, and it's really unnecessary. And this example is extreme, but it's, quite shocking, what that can lead to.
Alan Miller, I'm going to come to you now. Do you think this is just a question of personal responsibility?
Yeah, I think just to contextualise it, we've had alcohol for thousands of years, celebrating lives, births, marriages, deaths as well. It's an enormously important part of our culture. And for the majority of people, it's a fantastic, enjoyable thing. Interestingly, in the last 3 decades, we drink far less in Britain. If you look at how many people actually drink at a nightclub, the average drink is a drink and a half. There is, however, something that's changed, which is that with getting rid of pubs and also intergenerational interaction, that kind of expecting to behave a certain way and to be adult and grown up, that used to be part, of a rites of passage. That's kind of gone away a bit with the advent of a lot of pubs going and a bit of intergenerational stuff. But I am very concerned that whenever the policy discussion comes around the public, it's always alcohol harms, it's called, they have these terms like antisocial behaviour, alcohol-related crimes, alcohol-related harms. But in fact, we're much better behaved than we were in the last 3 decades. I joke with some of the older police who used to talk about Friday fight night. Yet we've got an obsession as though the public are somehow out of control. If you look at young people predominantly now, they'll think about the 1 or 2 type of cocktails they'll have with the kind of food they have. Very different, actually, to drinking before. But I do think it's part of an overall approach that kind of demonises the public. A bit like that thing they did at New Year's Eve a few years ago, where they presented this idea of everyone being a bit like Shameless in a kind of Caravaggio picture, when in actual fact, the majority of towns and cities, alcohol-related places light up our streets. They're great places to meet one another. And actually, we should be arguing for more 24-hour venues and better places everywhere, and stop with the fear-mongering around this.
Sandra Parker, can I ask you about this? I mean, you have this sobriety support group, so presumably you're in favour of sobriety, obviously. But would you like to see the government doing more to encourage people to be sober?
So I guess the first thing I would say is my group is about helping people control alcohol. So I work with people that are looking to get back control. whether that is to moderate, to drink occasionally, or to give up. So I'm not someone that's coming on and saying no one should drink alcohol. I think that for a huge amount of people, probably more people than people realise, because it's such a shameful thing, people don't talk about it. But a lot of people are finding that they are out of control. And in terms of the government, I think that there's a lot of things that people can do. So when we talk about banning things, that's not the approach that I favour. But in this particular instance of the workplace, I think it starts at the top. So the organisation and the management, we live in a multicultural society. There's people that don't drink alcohol for all sorts of reasons, and they can still go to a pub and have an alcohol-free beer. That's absolutely fine. But, people don't drink for religious reasons, for health reasons, or because they're trying to cut down. So if you're a manager, you're the employer, you have a duty to include everyone in your socialising. It doesn't need to revolve around alcohol. You can have fun and you can bond without that. I'm not in favour of banning it, but I think this is just an opportunity for us to take a step back and think, is there a sensible, a better way of socialising within the workplace than pub golf?
So you're in favour of criticising these bosses who are organising these kind of work night outs rather than forcing them to stop?
I think if you want to get the most out of your workforce, which most people do, if you're a manager, you want your team to do really well. If you want everyone to bond together, organising something like this alleged incident with pub golf, where people are encouraged, let's be honest, this is excessive alcohol. This is not just a pint and then you go home. Things like that, something is going to go wrong. If you've got someone junior in the team that's maybe not used to the environment, not used to knowing how much they drink, desperate to impress their peers, things like this will happen. So I think employers have a responsibility, yes.
Alan Miller, do you take Sandra's point that, there are some people who just cannot control their alcohol consumption, they have a major problem with it, and if they are encouraged to drink by their bosses, that's only going to make matters worse?
It's definitely the case that some people will have an issue. The question is, do we then reprogram the whole of society around the question that, and Sandra used this term, people out of control? And I'm very concerned that this out of control label becomes an approach of all work, the government, all sort of nudge units, whether it's about out of control in terms of now that it's seen as being a predator. If you talk to someone in a bar or comment on the way they look, now you're out of control. Who defines what's out of control? Sandra might say it's when people feel they're out of control. I would make the point that actually growing up, particularly when you're young, drinking a bit too much is a really good lesson for people to learn about how to be an adult and do those things. People make mistakes, like you make mistakes in lots of things in life. But it's such an integral part of society. And there's been, if we're honest, let's call it what it is. There's been an assault on alcohol. There's been an assault on licensed premises. There's been an assault on the public as though they're all a bit out of control. Mad, bad and dangerous, crime. When in actual fact, it's the thing that lights up our cities. It's on the dance floor that you get the new fashion. It's where you get the new Stormzy. It's what brings things together. It's what creates new employment and regeneration. And I'm very concerned that the discussion around alcohol becomes about, British culture, a bit like they talk about, those nasty terms about gammons and British people, and they're all mad, they drink too much, they want to fight. This is not the 1970s, right? That is not generally the situation anymore. And I'm concerned about this over interference in our private sphere. Let's get on with the important things in the public sphere and let people make their own decisions as adults.
OK, well, we're almost out of time. So, Sandra, just final word to you on that. Any thoughts?
Well, of course, people can make their own decision, but I would say that you can have a good time. You can go out, you can enjoy yourself. It's what my clients learn to do. You can have a fantastic time. You don't need alcohol. And we're not demonising everyone. We're recognising the fact that more than ever, people are struggling with alcohol. I mean, I know that from the emails that I get every day. We're not saying that we're demonising everyone, but we're saying let's recognise that not everybody wants to drink alcohol, and it should be absolutely okay to say that you don't want to drink alcohol.